Good morning. You're hearing? Okay, so I'm Sister Nicola. Everybody here calls me Nicola in Bethel. And I started attending Bethel in 2019. I remember when I came and my uncle, I don't know how many person knows him, John Fraser, and he was actually visiting in Florida. And I said to him, well, let us put it this way. I'm one of those persons who was, before I was even born, I was a brethren. So you know what that means. Jamaicans know what that means. And so when I came, I said to him that I needed to find a church. And he actually was at Bethel that Sunday. And he said, I'm going to be at Bethel. And he gave me the address and I came. And I have not looked back. I have felt like family. I feel like I've been here all my life. Everyone treats me like family, and that's something that I'm happy about and I'm grateful. Now, I'm just going to give you a little background on how I got saved. Even though I grew up in the church from before I was born, right up I had to go. But like most persons can relate, when I turned 18, honestly, I wanted to turn 18 because I wanted to stop going to church. So that is, I'm just being straight up, I wanted to stop going to church. I was just listening to a sister earlier, and she was saying that her grandson, she said, this is my little handbag, and she was saying that her kids used to come to church too, they don't come anymore. But so at 18, I stopped going for a number of years. And I think what I learned, though, foundationally, I knew if God took me home, I knew I'd go straight to hell. Because I never ever committed my life, even though I was in the church. But there was always a line, and maybe we could say conscience, that there are certain things that I would never do as an individual, even though I was never a Christian. There was always that line, because we learn things in the Brethren Church, foundation, there is a line we'll never cross. It's just because of what we have learned. Anyway, I'm going to fast forward to 2013, and well, let me say 2012. I worked at JPS from 1997 at a number of different offices, but then I went to St. Mary about 2010. We had our house and everything. And my husband is not a Christian even now. And my unsaved husband said to me, you know what, Nicola? He mentioned someone that he saw going to church with their little son. And he said, why don't you go to church? My husband is not a Christian. He said he saw such and such with their son. And I said to him, you know what? I don't have any car. I live too far off the main road. And I gave the excuse, and argument finished. Anyway, in my own quiet time, I felt bad that he had to ask me that. And I said, God, if you provide me with a car, I'll start going to church. Just in my, not saying it aloud, but God knows in my heart what I said. And I got a car, but I didn't remember that promise, believe me. And I was home one Sunday playing Candy Crush on my computer. And many of us can relate to Candy Crush. And something happened, and I was sitting on a white chair. And believe me, both of the legs broke, and I fell on the floor in the living room. And you know what came to my mind? You said if you got a car, you'd have gone to church. Sunday, I am around my computer playing Candy Crush with the car in the garage. And the other Sunday, I went to church. And I never looked back from that. And I remember when I said to Brother Prendergast, may his soul rest in peace, and I said I wanted to be baptized, and he said, okay, and he started doing the classes. And I asked him 4 times, and the 4th time he said, you're ready. I'm going to baptize you. You're serious about it, and I've never looked back. So I just want to encourage persons who have wayward children, grandchildren, take them to church once they're underage and they're under your care, because I'm telling you, they will remember. They'll never forget. When Sister Jenny asked me to speak at the breakfast, I didn't say yes first. I said, Sister Jenny, I'll get back to you. And I was like, in myself, I said, you know what? I don't have any theological training. I don't know how to do this. But you know what came to me? Jesus used simple people. And I'm a simple person. And I'll just speak to you from simple experiences and to tell you what God has done for me personally. If I should come up with a topic, though, I came up with the believer's life equation. And for me, I said the equation is simply, we're to learn to trust God, we're to learn to obey God, and in doing those two things, we'll get rest. And rest is not necessarily about sleep, that is important too, but it's just rest with the daily struggles that we face as human beings living in a very cruel, wicked world. When I looked at trusting God, and when I meditated, I said, and I'm sure many of us here can relate to that. When we first got saved, we were on top of the mountain. We can all relate. Felt good for a couple of months, maybe a few years. But then, when problems started to kick in, that's the real test. Many of us have faced problems with our spouses, our children, our finances are sometimes harshly attacked. Sometimes at work, you work with people that you're like, oh my God, I wish I did not have to go there today, but guess what? We have to go. We have to face the music because it's life and we're alive. We face family issues. Sometimes it's right in our homes, sometimes it's our family outside our circle, but for whatever reason, because of sin, those issues will always exist once we're alive. We face health issues. Some of us, our health, they're attacked. A number of issues, not just one, and you're like, oh my, when will this ever stop? And I trust you, God, when will it stop? And we can all speak about COVID-19. Maybe persons here have lost loved ones, and that in itself is an attack. But what I would like to find out, though, how many of us still trust God through these issues that we face? Do we believe his word when he says, I will never leave you and I will never forsake you? Are those the words that we use to comfort us when trials come? I'm sure many of us as Christians, we have our doubts. Well, let me speak for myself because maybe I have some persons who have no doubt. I've had doubts. I've cried out to God and said, where are you? Because you promise that you'll never leave me. I am in a situation here. Where are you? I'm not feeling you. But then he's like, be quiet, my child. It's in my time. You need to trust me. When I feel overwhelmed and very doubtful, though, honestly, I think God is drawing me to his resources, his word. Because sometimes when everything is okay, we might read a verse here, might read a verse there, but we don't meditate. We don't listen and listen to God speaking to us because everything is okay. And that's human nature, that's how we are. But when trouble comes, he causes trouble for a reason because he needs to pull us in. He's saying, come back, you're too comfortable out there. And so, Proverbs 16 verse 9 states that we can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. That is why we are to trust him, because God knew before we were even born. He knew all the issues that we are facing now. He knew all of us here who are Christians. He picked us, handpicked us before we were even born and said, you are mine, you are mine, you are mine. So you can go around the entire world, you are mine, and you'll have to come back. And so that's the reason that we must trust God, because we were chosen. And God makes no mistake. He's not a man. Anything he does, it's well done. As one brother, when he preaches, he said, God never says, oops, oh my God, I made a mistake. Never. Whatever it is, whatever happens, he caused it to happen. When I looked at trust, though, I looked at Deborah, and I looked at Judges chapter 14, and I saw how she trusted in God. She was a prophetess and a judge of Israel. And ladies, when you have time, read through that book and see how God used her. The chapter starts and it speaks of the Israelites who again did evil in the Lord's sight. And that word again there, I'm sure it wasn't placed there by mistake, because like us, we sin again and again and again, but we call upon God and he delivers again and again and again. And so the event speaks of how the Israelites, because of their evil ways, the Lord turned them over to King Jabin of Hazor, who was a Canaanite king. And he had a commander called Sisera, who was a very wicked person. He had 900 chariots. And for 20 years, the Bible says that he ruthlessly oppressed the children of Israel. Now, the fact that it says ruthlessly oppress, it didn't say oppress. Ruthlessly oppress must be something terrible. I would not even want to imagine what they went through. Anyway, like us, they called out to God, and he, as usual, decided to help. Now, one day out of the blue, Deborah, she sent for Barak. And she told him that the Lord was commanding him to call out 10,000 warriors from tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun at Mount Tabor. She told him that the Lord would deliver Sisera and all his chariots and warriors and give him victory over them. Now let us stop and think about this situation seriously. If you are being bullied by an individual for whatever reason, and you're afraid, terrified of this person, now nothing has changed nothing has changed regarding you then. You didn't learn martial arts. You didn't realize that suddenly you can do this and you have some magic power like in the cartoons. And someone just comes to you and say, Sister Primrose, I know that this person always bully, always beat you up, but today you're going to fix them. I don't know about Sister Primrose, but for me, I would be like, no. You're crazy. I am not facing that person. They have beaten me so many times, so no. But I don't know. Barak said, I will go if you go with me. Now that to me was really trusting both Deborah and Deborah even trusting God to deliver that message to Barak, because she knew that nothing had changed with them. But he went and God delivered. Now, if that is not an example in us trusting God, I do not know what is, because as I said, nothing changed, and as you read the word for yourself, you would have seen that nothing changed. Now, Judges 4, verse 14 to 15, and I will read what Deborah said to Barak. She said, "Get ready. This is the day the Lord will give you victory over Caesarea, for the Lord is marching ahead of you." So Barak led his 10,000 warriors down the slopes of Mount Tabor into battle. When Barak attacked, the Lord threw Caesarea and all his chariots and warriors into a panic. Caesarea leaped down from his chariot and escaped on foot. And please read the story when you get the time if you're not familiar with it, because it's really interesting as to what happened. Now, this is a lesson for us where we are to trust God. He is before us at all times. We can only see right in here, the four walls. But for each of our lives, God knows what will happen at 5, at 6, tomorrow. So you need to trust him. If you can trust going into your car that a man made, and you thinking that if there's an accident and you break up, the car will stop, why will you not trust an omnipresent God, an omniscient God who knows everything? And we have proven it. All of us can speak to it. If you're a believer, you can speak to it, that there must be a God. If we look back on our lives of where we're coming from and where we are now, and we should really sit and meditate, you can only say, who but God? I have a lot of personal testimonies, and I'm usually not afraid to share, honestly, and I'm not talking about things that I've gotten. I'm talking about experiences in life, because it's all well and good to have material things, but I'm concerned about here. What's in here? Because sometimes we have everything, but we are so sad. Because the thing is, we have not committed ourselves to God. We are only into it for the gimme, gimme. I want a nice house. I want a nice car. And yes, but what about here? You know, I never meant to share this, but I'm going to share it. You know how I know God is a good God? I grew up with my mother until maybe I was about 12. And my mother got married to someone else, and it wasn't a good life for whatever reason. Sometimes things happen. Let's put it that way. Things happen. And I started living with this lady, may her soul rest in peace, very nice lady too. And she would say to me from time to time, "Nicola," and I'm not going to cry because I don't want anybody crying, "you need to go and visit your mother." And I'm like, "No, I'm not going." And for years, I hated my mother. Believe me when I said I hated my mother. And as an adult, nothing changed. My husband would say to me, "When you get paid, you don't give your mother something." And I'm like, "No, I'm not ashamed to say it. No, because I could not understand how my mother would choose her husband over me at 12. I am a child." And so nothing was ever explained, and I just grew up with that hatred. When I became a Christian, I started talking to my mother but still I was angry. And I prayed about it. I started to pray. I know this was not right. And I said, "God, you have to allow me to love my mother because she is my mother." And something happened one day, right? And I got to tell her to her face. I said, "How could you choose that ugly man over me as your child?" And she just walked away. You know what now? I speak to my mother every day. Every day when I leave work at 5 o'clock, no one calls me because I'm calling my mother in Jamaica on WhatsApp. And I talk to her. If I drive for 1 hour, if I go to Walmart, wherever, we're talking. And I said, who but God? Only God can change the heart of a cruel person. Only God can change here. Only Him. And that is why I know I must trust God. I'm going to move on. I don't have a lot of time. In looking at obedience, I looked at Esther. We all know the story of Haman's plot to destroy the Jewish people. If we remember the story when Mordecai challenged Esther, and she was his cousin, that she should speak to the king on her people's behalf, because look at it. She had a position. And I'm wondering how many of us as Christians here have positions in organization that God has placed us, not our degrees, not our bachelors, not our doctorates. God has placed us there. Are we using it? Are we obeying God? Or is it about us? Me being Dr. So-and-so, me having a master's. Remember, it was God. Because regardless of your qualification, only God can move you to where you are. And so that was a reminder to Esther. You're not there because you're pretty. You were sent there by God for a purpose. And so you need to obey why God allowed you to be there. And so she had to be reminded, like us. Sometimes we have to be reminded. I'm sorry I cannot sing, or I would sing the song that says, draw back the curtains of memories now and then. Show me where you brought me from and where I could have been. Because sometimes we forget. We do forget. And so when Esther got the message, she sent a reply and she said, basically, she's saying she's afraid because Esther 4 verse 11, she says, all the king's officials and even the people in the provinces know that anyone who appears before the king in his inner court without being invited is doomed to die unless the king holds out his gold scepter. And the king has not called me to come to him for 30 days. Well, so we know it's fair, and that's the message she sent to Mordecai. And he basically said, well, Miss Esther, if you think that you are in the palace and you are afraid, if you don't come through, my God will. But remember, you will pay. So, Esther, being very brave, she obeyed God. You know what she said in verse 16 of Esther 4? She says, go and gather together all the Jews of Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will do the same, and then, though it is against the law, I will go in to see the king. If I must die, I must die. How many of us can say that? How many of us, when we are having issues, do we reach out to our sisters and say, pray? Or no, I don't want nobody to know my business. I don't want them to know say I go for one local job. I don't want them to pray for me. Because me think, say, it's my thing. No. You must have people. No one is saying you have to come up here and announce to the whole church, because I don't do that. But I have a few key people that I'll reach out to, and I say, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Please pray for me. And Esther knew the power of prayer. She knew the power of her God, which is most important. So if we know the power of our God, if we know that God knows everything, why do you think that if you share what you're going to do, I can stop it? I cannot. No one can stop God's plan for our lives. And I'm going to share another story, personal story. So, as mentioned in the bio, I work with Broward County. Now, I want to get into the purchasing department. I have no purchasing experience. And I have been trying, Nothing worked out. All right, so I applied for this job in the purchasing, transportation, where I am now, and I did the interview. I never heard anything. And then I got a letter, and we all know that letter. Well, when you work in Broward County, right, and you do an interview, if you get a letter, you don't get the work. That's at the bottom line. If you get a call, you can start smile. So when I get the letter and I see I'm like, okay. I just look at it and just say, okay, rejection. And I had another interview, same Broward County, for another position. So I was at lunch one day and I saw it was the county's number calling me. And I look, hello. And the person said, when I hear the voice on the other end, I'm like, wasn't this the HR lady who did the interview and I got the rejection letter? So she said, she introduced herself. Is this Nicola? I said, yes. And she said, oh, and she started, are you still interested in the position? Who but my God? Only my God. I said I got a rejection letter. You know what she said? Oh, the letter was sent to you in error. I didn't laugh then, but I hung up and I said, no, it wasn't an error. God had to show me that it is not in your control. You're applying all over, but you're going to transportation. But first, I must show you who is in control. Not you. Not you putting on your makeup and you're smiling when you're doing your interview and saying the right words. No. I had no clue in that interview when they asked me purchasing questions. I could not answer. I was like, oh, how would you do this? Oh, I would just adhere to the policies and procedures of the department. Come on, that is saying you don't know what you're doing. That is what it is saying. You don't know what to do. And that is what I said. And God put me there. And you know what? When I'm there now, and what I'm learning is right in line with what I want. Who but my God? And so he has taught me to be still, my child. Whatever it is, be still. My uncle has a thing to say when he preaches, and sometimes I relate to it. If you're married to an unsaved person, remember the devil is your father-in-law. You ever hear that? It might sound funny, but it's true. Because if you're not serving God, it's who you're serving. So my husband is not a Christian, so everybody know who my father-in-law is, right? But you know what? When him come, him have to back off. When him come with trouble, and him try a number of times, but I just take up my Bible and I just read it. Because I said, no, you are not going to come in here and control what happens in here. My husband is the head of the house, I don't rule him. But when it comes on to certain things, my Bible, my directives from God takes precedence. And so I'm going to go to rest, because today is a Saturday, and for those of us who work, we have stuff to do, so I'm going to ensure that we leave here on a timely basis. Let us never forget that God is always with us. No matter what you are going through, when you lay your head to rest, remember God is there. He has promised that I will never leave you, I will never forsake you. And in those troubling times, you know what we have to remember? The times that he delivered. Never focus on what is happening now. At all times, think about the times that God delivered. Because that is what will get us through. If we should focus on the now and the issues that we go through, the mortgages to be paid or the rent or the car note or whatever else there is, or the children that giving you some issues, or the co-worker where honestly if I never have to go to work I wouldn't go, but I have to go because I have to pay my bills. Just pray when you go there in the parking lot and say, God, go before me. Don't go with me this time. Go and sit down before me. And then he will clear the way. And believe me, I've proven that when I've worked with some really difficult persons. And the other side of me, that is the old self, want to creep back in. But I have to say, no, 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 no. God, go before me. Go before me. And I call them names sometimes and say, you have to change this person's heart. I can feel the animosity, especially when we are this color and working sometimes with the other color. It can be a challenge. And me being an immigrant that don't talk like the nice people them too is another issue. But God, he has delivered, and I thank him every day for his deliverance. And when I looked at rest, I looked at Acts chapter 12, and we know that King Herod Agrippa during that time, he was persecuting some of the believers. We saw where he had James killed, and because this pleased the people at the time, it pushed him to be more harsh, which is just human nature. You're at work, you're doing something well, and your manager say, oh, Miss So-and-so, you're doing such a great job. We push harder because we like the nice something them. So even though he was doing evil, the people around him liked it. So it pushed him to oppress the people even more. And I looked at Acts chapter 12, verse 6 to 7. And it reads, the night before Peter, so he actually arrested Peter, and Peter would not know his fate at this time because, and I'm thinking, Peter must have some level of reasoning. If him kill James and him lock me up, then, then death must be the next thing for me. But the scripture says that night before Peter was placed on trial, he was asleep, fastened with 2 chains between 2 soldiers. Others stood guard at the prison. Suddenly, there was a bright light in the cell, and an angel of the Lord stood before Peter. The angel struck him on the side to awaken him and said, quick, get up, and the chains fell off his wrists. I am not going to focus on the fact that, because we know that they prayed and that Peter came out. I'm focusing on the fact that Peter was fast asleep. Because you notice what the scripture said? The angel had to. So you can imagine you going through tribulation, you lose your life tomorrow, and you in a deep sleep. I don't know about that. I would be just there praying and petitioning and asking God, please. Because as one brother said, he asked one day in church, how many of you want to go to heaven? How many of you want to die now? So I'm like, but you have to dead before you go to heaven or before you see God. So it's the same thing. I'm sure Peter knew where he was going. So I would think he should be worried. But you know what? He trusted his God. And so he could rest. That is what we have to do. I don't think when we have issues, we should be lying down and can't sleep for hours. It means you are trying to fix the problem. And that's an issue because you can't fix the problem. So you need to pray, and you need to leave it to God, and you need to rest. rest, and we all need our sleep. Last night I never slept very well, but thank God for the good old Jamaican coffee. See how I'm perked up? But I didn't sleep well because of any issues. It was something else. I went to my bed late because I was doing something else. In closing, though, I want to leave all of us, including me, with Galatians 2, verse 20. It states that my old self has been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. So I live in this earthly body by trusting in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. So as believers and followers of Christ, we are a new creation. The old person is the person who worry about how this is going to happen, how that is going to happen, if this person going to get well, if this person going dead, how this, that. No. We live in God's will. So whether it is death, or we're going to cry. When we can't pay our bills, it going to worry we a bit, but don't let it be a worry where it deprives you of your rest. And as I said, rest is not sleeping. I'm talking about peace. I'm talking about walking around and you don't look like the world is on your shoulder. Because as a Christian, if you can walk around like the world is on your shoulder, who you can approach and tell about God? And them like, you look so stressed all the time. Is that God you want me to trust? No. I have asked people have asked me, why are you so happy all the time? Sometimes they don't know. I'm not happy, but I try to have a happy face. And I say to them, you know what? It's not that I don't have any issues, but I have God. And they have asked me, who is God? And as I said, I have no theological background. I only speak to circumstances. And even with that job that I told you about, there was a girl in my office. We speak, she's not a Christian, but we talk very well. And when I told her, I got 2 job offers that same time. And you know what she looked at me and said? She said, Nicola, who but God? She's not a Christian, but I was saying to her because she said something to me one day. And I said to her, Tracy, God is going to move me when he's ready. He's not ready. I still have to stay in here regardless of the fact that I want to leave and I would want more money and I work hard and I'm not getting a promotion, but God is not ready. We have to learn to trust God, obey God, so we can get our rest. Have a good day and thank you.